My name is Mike Matthews. I am the host of the longest running self-produced podcast in the universe, and that would be Mike's Daily Podcast, because I've been producing this thing for a long time. We're at FF episode 2937, so quite a few FF episodes. I do this all on my own, getting some help from some stories that I find by going down to my local library and going into their massive room with all the newspapers. There's thousands and thousands of newspapers, and I go through all of that. And actually, I go through that virtually. We call this Google. But I get a lot of interesting information, and I pass it along to you. But you have to pass yourself along into Café Anyway and hang out with me, because this is Mike's Daily Podcast. And let's go to Café Anyway. Welcome to Café Anyway.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
It's FF episode 2937, and Mike Matthews here at Café Anyway, somewhere in podCastro Valley, the last place on earth.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
It's Mike's Daily Podcast, and I'm singing the song, and it's wonderful because of the singing with my voice and everything that I'm doing, and I'm bringing you this great song. That's really great, and I guess it's one of those awesome songs where I don't sing about SpaghettiOs, although I was thinking of it just now. What made me think about that? That's odd. Wow.
Mike's
Daily Podcast. All right. Hey, did you know interesting things about maples?
Mike's
Maple syrup?
Daily
Maple trees.
Podcast.
Maple trees.
Yeah!
Well, it has to do with maple syrup. An invasive maple came to the U.S. centuries ago, according to the people from Birds in Bloom. The Norway maple, classified as highly invasive in the United States, was first imported from Europe and Asia in 1756. It was an ornamental landscaping tree, but considered invasive. That's what it's funny, because now you go, oh, that's a part of America, but not so when I first came here. It takes a lot of sap to make maple syrup, which makes me wonder, by the way, the very invasive eucalyptus tree in the United States. A lot of people in the Bay Area are like, mow them all down. When they catch fire, it's like a candlestick. It's a matchstick going off. When it rains, the roots are really shallow. They fall over and smash houses. Well, but they've been here so long. Are they considered invasive? I guess everything was invasive at one point. It takes about 40 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup. Sugar maples are the biggest sap producers. So you're probably getting your syrup from one of those. So they are favored by maple sugar makers. Depending on the soil, climate, and its genetics, a maple tree needs to be about 10 inches in diameter.
And here's today's podcast picture.
Yes, a maple tree needs to be about 10 inches in diameter before it will produce enough sap to make syrup. Oh, the podcast picture is not of a maple tree, but something that's also very prominent this time of year, because it's got the maple trees turning different colors, looking really nice. But this time of year is also all the Halloween decorations, and I've been posting a lot of podcast pictures of those. See them at mikesdailypodcast.com. This one is from about 6 years ago. And the late, great Basil the Boxer and I used to walk past this one house all the time and see all these cool Halloween decorations. Maple trees grow taller than you think. Some sugar maple trees can grow up to 150 feet tall. Most, according to the New England Forestry Foundation, reach heights between 80 and 100 feet. There are many, many maple species in the world. There's about 132, mostly native to Asia. Maple trees can live hundreds of years. The long-lived hardwoods, some maple trees in North America, they're over 300 years old. Maple trees are widespread. They have the longest continuous range of trees in the North America, spanning 1,900 miles up the East Coast. and they can grow at elevations from sea level all the way up to 3,000 feet. And of course, they can withstand the cold, extreme cold.
This is interesting.
Wow, this is interesting.
It's interesting they can tolerate temperatures down to negative 40 degrees. That is the red maple. Mike, for all of that fascinating stuff. You're welcome. So if you're like one of these type of people that like to fly up to Canada and you like to jump in a Boeing plane, or maybe you don't like to jump in a Boeing plane, but the Boeing jets seem to be the only jets you can jump into these days, passenger planes. The Boeing strike continues. Boeing having all kinds of issues, of course, with the planes, with losing a bunch of money.
Oh, Mike, you're such a creative soul.
All right.
I would not be a creative, so I would know what to do with Boeing. I don't know if the people running Boeing know what to do with Boeing, but they're also going through a strike right now, and that is pushing their supplier Spirit to plan worker furloughs. The Spirit Aerosystems holdings that supply the supplies that the Boeing jets need, they will start furloughing workers later this month in response to the continuing strike at Boeing Company. The aerostructure supplier's biggest customer is Spirit Aerosystems. Spirit will implement a 21-day furlough to about 700 workers. And the Spirit spokesman Joe Buccino said if the strike at Boeing...
Oh, yeah.
Yep, that's going on. Soon to enter its 6th week, continues past November, Spirit will need to extend unpaid leave and begin layoffs. All the stuff that Boeing is going through these days include their stock price going down, and of course, the planes having issues. Oh, and their Starliner that had malfunctions in it. And the astronauts that were riding it, they're still stuck up in space. They're not lost in space, but they're up at the space station waiting for Elon Musk to come rescue them. Putin says BRICS will generate most of the global economic growth. BRICS, or BRICS, is an intergovernmental...
Right?
That's what it is. Intergovernmental organization comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and the United Arab Emirates. Originally identified to highlight investment opportunities, the grouping evolved into a geopolitical bloc, with their governments meeting annually at formal summits and coordinating multilateral policies since 2009. And it was, let's see, the first summit was back in 2009. Putin was at the, as we go outside the Café Anyway, where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast, somewhere in Podcastro Valley, the last place on earth, in the land of Ameritopica. The BRICS group will generate most of the global economic growth in the coming years thanks to its size and relatively fast growth compared with that of developed Western nations, said Putin last week. He hopes to build up the BRICS as a powerful counterweight to the West in global politics and trade. And let's see. Oh, and I guess there's a BRICS summit in Russia going on now.
It's pretty interesting.
Isn't it, though? Oh, okay. So, Costco is this big thing, and they're doing really well. And they're selling bars of gold, which I witnessed myself. I was like, oh, I forgot to get mayonnaise. And I go up to the guy at the desk. I go, can I get some mayonnaise? And meanwhile, someone walks up to him and says, hey, Bill, someone bought another bar of gold. And he goes, okay, do we have any more left? And he goes, oh, yeah, there's one more in the back. And I'm thinking that... Chowder. I'm thinking chowder. He's going back there to get it like he'd get some chowder mix. It's back there like behind the break room and stuff. I don't know if there's a huge vault and a couple guys with machine guns or whatever. Oh, by the way, speaking of guns. So that issue I told you about in the last podcast where There was a couple cops out in front of a house down the street from me, and all night long they were saying on the intercom, come out with your hands up. The place is surrounded. And at first I thought it was my house, but it was this house up the street. Well, interestingly...
And the Oscar goes to...
And it wasn't a movie either. So no Oscar going to anybody here. But we talked to one of the police officers finally today, since there was no information about that on the internet. And he said that, there was a guy in a house, this particular house, that the police were surrounding, that was not supposed to be in the house for whatever reason. I don't know if the guy knew the people in the house or if he just was an unwanted guest. So they told him to leave. And I guess he snuck out at one point late last night. So that's why I stopped hearing the calls over the intercom for him to come out with his hands up. But somehow he returned later today.
Revenge is a dish best served cold. You think about that.
I thought about that, but what I'm really thinking about is that I better keep my back door locked, because apparently the guy snuck out, went through someone's backyard. But today, in the daylight, we saw the cops there, Alameda County Sheriff's Department, actually, and they used a little drone, this tiny little drone, that goes around to see if anybody's in the house. They went into the house. We saw rifles drawn, some kind of automatic rifle type scary looking weapon, going in, checking it out, and then they left because I guess the guy wasn't there. But there was a nice police officer standing by a hummingbird feeder that gave us all the 411 about everything. Reno 911. But no, not that. And there were hummingbirds everywhere. I'm like, why are there so many hummingbirds flying around this police officer? Oh, there's 2 hummingbird feeders right behind him, and they were going nuts. So back to Costco, though. There is a Costco up in Sonoma that opened recently. And there were like these 2 guys, the KPIX news crew were talking to 2 of the guys waiting in line for about a week to get into the Costco. And one of them said, I come to all the new Costcos that open because they carry a special type of liquor that he likes. And they only have them on the opening day.
You want to join in on this conversation? You can join in. You can.
Thank you. Sure. I will join in, but I would never wait at a Costco for over a week just to get a bottle of something you probably order online. Actually, there were 2 guys. One guy flew in from Hawaii all the way to Sonoma just because it was some kind of bourbon that he couldn't get in Hawaii. So he waited in line. Ridiculous. But Kmart does not have the prestige and the joy. And well, they're not around anymore at all. But they're not like Costco at all. Kmart wanted to be like Costco, but just didn't work out. Longtime discount retailer Kmart has reached its end of days. It ended on Sunday. The last full-size store on the U.S. mainland.
Live and local.
And I'm amazed there was still one around. But the last one closed. There used to be one in Hayward. That is now that shopping center. It took about 6 years to finally clear everything out, dismantle, tear down, demolish the Kmart, and they put up a nice shopping center there now with a Sprouts and an In-N-Out Burger and a, what do they call it, Raising Cane's. And there's a Ross in there, Starbucks, and they're putting in a couple other stores, but the Sprouts was really small compared to some of the other ones I went in, and I just could not find anything worth getting there. But I'd much rather go to a grocery outlet than a Sprouts, which we also have around here in the Bay Area, those 2 chains. But the final Kmart closed its doors in Bridgehampton, New York.
Ridiculous random.
Yes, ridiculous random post. Once the Long Island location is gone, well, shoppers won't be able to find the once popular discount store within the continental U.S., so it's gone. It left this weekend, and they're all gone, and so there you go. Though there are some small convenience store versions of Kmart around the country, this marks the end of the era for the brand, basically. A small Kmart store in Miami, Florida still exists, and a small number of other locations between Guam and the U.S. Virgin Islands exist. Kmart was once the go-to discount store up until its merger with Sears in 2005, and Sears is now gone, facilitated by a hedge fund operator named Eddie Lampert. The brand collaborated with celebrity icons at its heyday, and people would go buy modems at Kmart. I don't know if you could buy a modem at Kmart, or you could back in the day. They released Selena Gomez's Dream Out Loud line in 2010, so they weren't that defunct yet. And Adam Levine of Maroon 5's clothing line in 2013. I guess that marked the end of the things weren't going to be going very well for them when that happened. Offering clothes and other household items at affordable prices. When Kmart merged with Sears, they then had about 2,300 stores, though that number decreased to just 422 stores after the brand emerged from its 2018 bankruptcy filing. Since then, that number has only continued to dwindle amid competition from Target, Walmart, and other online retailers. It's all about the online these days.
But if you get offended, that's the way the cookie crumbles. No.
Yeah, that's the way it is. Just, with that, some of this might be choppy. I'm having all kinds of problems with my computer today. The U.S. deficit dropped $1.8 trillion in 2024 as interest on the debt surpassed, I wish it was dropped. The U.S. deficit topped $1.8 trillion in 2024 as interest on the debt surpassed the $1 trillion mark. That, according to CNBC, the Biden administration rang up a budget topper of $1.8 trillion in fiscal 2024, up more than 8% from the previous year and the third highest on record. The interest expense for the year totaled $1.16 trillion, the first time that figure has topped the $1 trillion level. And as this one business guy I know says,
Mike's Daily Podcast Master Pod Beater.
If you really want to understand what that means, $1 trillion, go and try and write it out. It's a lot of zeros. It doesn't make sense. We just say the word trillion, and then, we'll do a point this, point that, but so that may not bode well for Democrats. Oh, this is supposed to be a theater part of the show. Zounds! Look at the deficit. Thank you very much. It's my little monologue. And then you heard the entire country of Cuba experience a devastating blackout when one of its main power plants, the Antonio Guterres thermonuclear... Oh, it's not a thermonuclear, thankfully. A thermoelectric power plant suddenly went offline. This unexpected shutdown caused a complete collapse of the island's power system. The Ministry of Energy and Mines in Cuba, not cumin, which is, I love that herb, just like putting it in everything, so good, quickly assured the public that it's more of a spice, quickly assured the public that teams were working around the clock to restore electricity.
If you shoot me, you better shoot
recently.
Straight. There's nothing like a wounded animal.
No, don't shoot any politicians. Let's just keep away from that. Okay, I'm going to have to reboot my computer and do a deep defrag. Do they still do defrags? I got to defrag. There's all kinds of fragments going on in my computer. It's causing it to run really slow. But first, let's say hi to some people. Hi, Mac. It's Benita the Rodeo Queen. How you doing? It's a Disgruntled Fiddle Player. Tell you what. What? Yeah, I think that shooting anybody is wrong, but that's pretty scary. You saw some people with rifles and assault rifles and whatnot walking around in podCastro Valley there. Tell you what. What? Yeah. Well, they were the sheriff's department, and there was someone that they've been trying to track down. So, yeah, I guess that's bound to happen. Even in California, where supposedly we're all anti-guns, but nope, there's guns about because there are bad people around, I guess. It's my review about that.
Mike's absolutely useless review.
I'll be honest, where we were when we saw this, I was walking with my lovely lady friend and I was saying, you know, I'm sensing there might not be good things happening in this particular area. My spidey senses go off. So my review is pay attention to your spidey senses when things go. That's what I see. Reviewing what happened there. And finally, look who else is here.
Oh, Mike, I make delicious root beer. Hurts right now. Oh,
all right.
We are the knights who say...
Oh, it's so delicious. That was good. What's in it?
I put delicious things.
Excellent.
Cumin
in my root beer. No. Next show, it'll be the wonderful Madame Rootabega, Valentino, and Bison Bentley. Hopefully the computer will work a little bit better next time. What do you think about all this? Here's the number to call.
Call Mike at the Café Anyway hotline. Area code 510-228-4640. Will you shut ups? Liberty Nation Freedom.
And with all things having to do with Mike's Daily Podcast, we go to the mainframe and hear from A-Frame. Thank you for listening. Thank you, and thank you.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com.
Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com.
See you tomorrow. Bye.